Hello everybody. Little while since I made a video, but there was something I wanted to just mention to everybody. I think it's something I mentioned in other videos before, especially on my old channel. It's just to advise you all of an author called Joel Goldsmith, who he's wrote numerous spiritual books. Which I have read. Some of them I'm halfway through at the minute. He was born in 1892. He's been dead since 1964. And what's really interesting is the case with all true spiritual teachings, they're timeless. You know, you don't get a sense when you're reading it at all that it's something that was written 60, 70 years ago or whatever. Of course, there's spiritual texts out there that are 2,000 years old that are still relevant now, that still feel fresh and new, and that's the beauty of true spiritual teachings. And that's when you know you're reading something that speaks from the truth, because obviously there's a lot of dogma, propaganda attached to a lot of shall we say teachings out there at the minute. But you just know when you read it, it speaks from the truth. I started off with a book called The Infinite Way. That book, it's a small book, and he wrote it, I believe, in 1948, and it's absolutely fantastic. It's one of them books, you read it, and you have to have a minute every now and again, and contemplate what you've read, because it really strikes a chord. And that is when you know you're reading something true. I don't want to start having a go at certain books, because it'd be inappropriate for me to do that. But once I started down this path, if you will, I wrote a lot of books that I got engrossed in that didn't do that. And I kind of knew when I finished the book, I'm not convinced about what it's trying to tell me there. And like I said, I just don't think it's appropriate for me to start doing videos and slagging off certain books. You have to find your own path, really. But what I'm trying to say is, when you have these moments where you read a sentence or a passage, and you have to have a moment, it's like the mini meditations that I mentioned in the last video. You can stop and contemplate and become still. And that is a way of, when you're reading, you're doing more than reading. When you're reading a spiritual book and you're not just thinking about just the words, you're taking the deeper meaning, if you will. You're doing more than just reading a book. You sort of, the light of your consciousness is growing. It's what Eckhart Tolle says: when you create a gap in the mind stream, the light of your consciousness grows. And that's what happens, because it also says in a lot of his books that reading spiritual books is great, and you can gather great insight, and it can strike a chord, but you have to have the meditation to go along with it. It's a little bit like reading lots and lots of books about golf, but yet never playing the sport. It's all fine if you want to know everything about it, but until you actually get out there on the golf course, in fact, I'll tell you a greater sort of now we're sort of playing around with analogies. I say a greater analogy is being on the driving range, because golf is something I picked up and danced around with. It's like being on the driving range and never going out on the golf course. That's what it's like if you just read spiritual texts and don't either meditate or contemplate them deeply. Because, when I was playing on the driving range, I was hitting balls far into the distance, hitting them sweetly, and as soon as I got out on the golf course, it didn't work like that, and it was a whole new avenue that I had to go down. It was a whole new world, basically, and it kind of almost felt that the time on the driving range didn't mean much, but it did serve me because I had the basic knowledge and understanding. But really, without being on the golf course, in other words, without meditation and putting the teachings into daily practice, it's pretty much pointless. It's just basically it'd just be a bit of a hobby, really, which there's nothing wrong with. I mean, let's look at this in perspective. If you decided to spend all your time doing spiritual things like helping people and reading spiritual books, I would suggest it's certainly a lot better than some things that people are involved with these days. There's certainly less worthy goals out there, but meditation, meditation can be difficult, and it's not something that you have to sit there every day for an hour, otherwise you're not getting anywhere. This is from a personal point of view, and it started to help me greatly. I always try and have at least 30 minutes meditation every day, in silent meditation, in the dark. That's when I seem to get the greater insights and changes. It really is a benefit, but it's not easy. But yeah, with regard to the good thing about Joel Goldsmith's teachings is he reminds you of the fact all the time that you must put this into practice. What I found with a lot of spiritual seekers is they have a concept in their mind of me, the spiritual person. And I can see some people, I'm at message of a few forums online and things like that, and I talk to a few people that practice it. They're so caught up in this spiritual world that they think that they've entered, and some of them have, some of them haven't. It becomes a concept to them. And you have to be very careful with that. You create a concept in your mind of me, the spiritual person. And that can lead you down the wrong path. You've got to try and live your life as normal and carry on and honour who you are in your life, but incorporate the wisdom that you've gained into your daily life. Otherwise, it's meaningless. If you want to live out in the woods and on your own, that's fine. I wouldn't necessarily think that's right to do. I don't think that's necessary. It's like some of the people in India that you see, and they hold their arm up all their life because they kind of want to expose. You've seen them on the TV where they continually have one arm in the air because they want to expose themselves to a bit of hardship, because they believe that is the quicker way to God. When you go through suffering, that's how you grow. And of course, that's true. My personal perspective, for what it's worth, is life throws enough challenges and suffering at you anyway. So I would tend to live your life as you are doing. If you need to go down another path, as long as you are living from a true place, that will come naturally. You don't have to force it. It's like the profession I'm in at the minute. From some perspectives, it's pretty. It's incredibly challenging to remain, how shall we say, to remain grounded and to remain egoless, really. I'm trying to kill my ego every day, and it's not an easy challenge. And in the profession that I do, it's very challenging, but I know that's what is right for me at this minute. So that's the good thing about Joel's teachings, is he constantly reminds you of the need for meditation and the need for practicing what you do. He does repeat a lot of the same things in the books, but that is a good thing, because sometimes that means it'll sink in more. It's a common thing among religions. He does seem to walk from a sort of Christian perspective. Believe that he was in England he's an American, but he lived in England for some of his life. He didn't attain what he believed spiritual realization until he was approaching middle age. But I believe that he had some dealings with Christian teachers, and it is written. The books are written from kind of a Christian's perspective, but because it's not, there's no dogma or preaching or anything like that. Even a non-Christian can pick up that book and gain something from it. It isn't. He just talks about Jesus quite a lot, and there's a lot of passages from the Bible that he goes into. This is what I like about it. The passages that are from the Bible that have been misunderstood throughout the years, throughout hundreds and hundreds of years, and created all kinds of chaos. He has a true perspective on these people. On these passages, and but when you're reading it, this is how it was meant to be interpreted, and I think that was probably the thing that drew me to it originally. There's just one quick passage from a book called A Parenthesis on Eternity, and basically it's comparing life and the self to a tree in this particular passage. And he says here, the life of the tree constitutes the life of every branch and every piece of fruit on it. If each apple felt that it had a life, a dignity, and an identity of its own, there would soon be a struggle. Only because of the oneness of the fruit with the tree can the tree, branches, and fruit all abide together harmoniously. Now for a moment try to visualize a branch of a tree that is cut off, set off by itself, having no relationship with the tree whatsoever, and you will understand what is meant by two-ness. Moreover, where it is possible for any part of the tree to have an ego, it would also be possible for a branch to become envious of all the good that is on the tree and want some of it, or the tree, seeing the glory of the branch, might want to subdue or possess it. I'll just read the next paragraph. But look again and see that the branch back on its tree. Now there is one tree and one life, and the life of the tree is the life of every branch of the tree. There is no union there because there are not two, there is just one. There can be dozens of branches, but there is only one life, one intelligence, one source of supply, just one, and therefore no single branch of a tree could ever be in conflict with any other branch of that tree. And I read all that section, it's like 3 paragraphs of the book, and I just thought that's what a brilliant way of putting it. It's just kind of saying how it just says a lot, doesn't it? There's a lot to contemplate there. It's talking about seeing yourself as a separate person. This is something I've struggled with. It's like, well, of course I'm a separate person. I'm me. I've got my own thoughts and my own perspective. Nobody else has got that. So how can I not be separate and my own person? And I've contemplated that. And from one perspective, of course, I am on my own, and I am separate. I've got my own separate thoughts. Nobody else on the planet knows what my thoughts are. And I've got to deal with those, and I've got to deal with my own struggles. But once you go deeper, you realise that everything that you are, your very deepest true essence, is no different than your deepest true essence and the life that you are. What animates you animates me. We are connected to everything around us at a deep level. There is no, at the very truest, really the only reality is that we are all connected. We're connected with every rock, everything that we see. Me talking to you now, you listening, everything is connected. And when you become separate, when you develop an ego, that's when you become destructive, because you cut off. I think Jesus said once, you become like a vine cut from the branch. So you don't have the deeper power, and that deeper power, I mean, it's kind of tricky when you go into language here, because a deeper power, someone might listen, oh, I want a deeper power, oh, where do I get this deeper power? And you can't think of it like that. But your deeper essence, everything that is good about you, is not inherent to you as you. It is inherent to the universe. You are part of that. You're part of infinity. You're part of God. And if you believe that to be separate, there will be conflict and there will be some amount of discord and suffering. That's what meditation is good for. If you meditate in a true way, you can start to get connected to that connectedness. And that's quite important, I believe. Well, it's very important. It's the most important thing. So he also has done a book called Meditations, which clearly will be about meditations. I've not read that yet. I'm on to my third book of his. What was the book I'm currently reading? Practicing the Presence, I believe it's called. I'm about a quarter of the way through. It's brilliant. The sun's shining where I am at the minute, and in Manchester it doesn't happen very often, so I'm going to take my Kindle to a nice spot and read that for an hour or so while the weather's nice. That's one of the things I like to do. I like to sit in a nice little coffee shop when the weather's not great, read a book on my own, and just contemplate it. I find that very nice because it's kind of in solitude, but you're surrounded by other people as well. But I also like to go to, beautiful park surroundings and have a bit of a read and just be there with nature. I think that's very important as well. So guys, this was just a quick one. Well, I thought it'd only be a few minutes, but here we go. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please leave any comments, and if you do decide to read Joel Goldsmith's stuff, please let me know how you get on with it. I don't think you'll be disappointed at all. In fact, I'm pretty sure you won't be. But I really do appreciate you listening. If you can like it, I'm trying to get, because obviously I had to close my other channel down because of YouTube, so I'm just trying to get a few more of the old subscribers back on this one. So I do appreciate you listening. Just like and share it if you can, and I'll speak to you soon.